Hi class, so today we're going to talk about the lymphatic system for your homework. So you should have your human body unit lymphatic system worksheet with you. This is a pretty short system we're going to go over. It's only like 5 questions. As you can see, there's not even a back. Um, as one of the students pointed out on one of my last videos, it's not very easy to see my hand gestures, so I'll try not to do those anymore. But forever now, that student will be known that she is in these videos, right, McKenna? Okay, so here we go. So the lymphatic system is very similar to the circulatory system in a lot of ways, which is why I like to do it kind of related when we're doing circulatory respiratory. And the reason is if you kind of look at the diagram, your lymphatic system, its main function is to return fluids to the bloodstream. It's to essentially take the fluids that are building up in your cells, so like the extra fluids that would cause your cells to swell because of the diffusion of oxygen and nutrients going in and waste coming out, and return that like extra water and stuff and fluids back into your blood. So it has a lot of systems that's very similar to the circulatory system if you think of it in this idea of branching, kind of like how the veins started small from the capillaries and then they go, like streams going into bigger rivers and bigger rivers until finally it dumps back into the main big system or the biggest river. That's kind of what it does. Lymphatic system also does help transport fats from the digestive tract to the bloodstream, and it plays a very important role in your surveillance and defense against organisms and chemicals. And that's often like we're going to talk about your lymph nodes that are often like you have a bunch of them in your neck will swell when you get sick and stuff, is because they're actually filtering out a lot of the bacteria or germs or viruses, and they play an important role in that aspect. So, all right, so what is lymph? Lymph is actually the fluid that is collected, okay? Your lymph nodes are the things that are doing the filtering, but lymph itself is the actual fluid. Okay, it comes from the fluid in the blood moving into the cells. So, like I said, it's somewhat related to your circulatory system. So, as your arteries are bringing blood that's high in oxygen to your cells, and then you have your capillaries right here. They're going to be dumping different nutrients, oxygen stuff, right, into the cells, and then the carbon dioxide is going to come back in, and then the veins are going to take this back to your heart. Well, the whole time this is happening in your body, you're also losing some fluid. And if you think of the way your heart works with it pumping blood, it has to have, remember that whole plasma part of the blood, which is like the fluid part of the blood. You're losing some of that. So every time you take, I tell kids, think of like a brake system in your car that slowly over time is going to lose brake fluid. Well, eventually, if all the lines run out of brake fluid, then your pressure goes down and your brakes aren't going to work. So as you're losing this fluid, your blood pressure is going to decrease. You have less blood, like blood in your veins and arteries, and that's not good. Also, if it's left unchecked, these cells, think about what we learned with cells, are going to continue to swell and swell and swell. And at some point, it's like a water balloon that's just taking more and more water in. At some point, the cell membrane just can't stretch anymore, and the cells would burst, and you would have major issues with essentially your cells dying because they're breaking, like water balloons bursting open and all the contents coming out. So the lymphatic system is essentially, see these green things, is a network of like, almost like the capillaries are, these small networks of different tubes that are going to collect this extra fluid and kind of branch and branch and eventually put the blood, or the fluids like the water and stuff like that back into the circulatory system. Okay, so lymphatics, all right, they originate as capillaries. So the capillaries are the things that form the larger vessels, right? So they resemble the veins and stuff like that. You have two main ones. You don't have to worry about that, but you have what's called your right lymphatic duct and that's up here towards your neck. And that's the main lymphatic duct that's going to dump all that fluid back into um, what's called your subclavian vein, which is under your clavicle, which is your shoulder bone. And then you have your thoracic duct, which also is going to dump in. So this would be an example of a lymphatic. So lymph is the fluid. Lymphatics, okay, is the actual kind of like, I guess, vein or capillary type tubes that the fluid is going to flow in to be taken back to your lymph nodes, as you can see. So those are your lymphatics. Your lymph nodes are oval structures located along the lymphatics. So like your lymph nodes are like these bigger kind of clusters of cells that are helping filter out like germs and stuff like that, where the lymphatics are these vessels, which sometimes are called lymph vessels. So the lymphatics are the vessels, the lymph nodes are like kind of the bigger things, okay? Now, your tonsils are actually a cluster of lymph nodes. And this is why, if you think of the way your tonsils are that are in the back of your throat, their job is to make some of that mucus, right? They're in the back of the pharyngeal back here. And then what happens a lot with these is because these lymph nodes are helping kind of filter any of the junk. So like as different germs and infection is making stuff, it's going to build up in your lymph nodes. And that's often why your tonsils, they'll, like people who get tonsillitis and stuff like that, they're going to swell. It's the same reason why the doctor often feels your lymph nodes underneath your neck right here, because if they're swollen, that's a sign that there's some sort of infection somewhere in your body. Usually the lymph nodes are going to swell near where the infection is because they're the one kind of collecting all of this infection and junk and waste and stuff like that. So you got to just be really careful of that. So like I said, so lymphatics are for number 4. Lymphatics are the tubes. Lymph nodes are kind of the cluster of cells that are going to help to filter and collect. 5, why do your lymph nodes swell? Because they're often collecting and filtering out a lot of this junk and bacteria, so they swell, showing that there's an infection. There are 3 main parts of it that I'll just point out real quick. I already talked about the tonsils. Your spleen is also a major organ in your lymphatic system along with your tonsils. It's actually the largest lymphatic organ. It's located down by your stomach, between your stomach and your diaphragm. And its main job, all right, is to filter the blood and store blood. So your spleen is really huge in helping get things out of your blood that aren't supposed to be there. You also have what is called your thymus gland, okay? And this is actually right here in your chest cavity, right behind your sternum, kind of right above your heart sits this gland, okay? And this helps in developing and making your T cells, which remember are one of the types of white blood cells that help fight infection and stuff. So this is a very important organ in kind of your defense mechanism in helping mature and differentiate. And remember, differentiate means that this will help kind of make all the different types of white blood cells that are able to fight different infections and stuff. So that's the lymphatic system. Like I said, pretty short one. We'll kind of talk about it real quick tomorrow if you have any questions in class, and have a good day.